Then a man named Jairus, a leader of the local synagogue, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come home with him. His only daughter, who was about 12 years old, was dying. Now, it's interesting. Jairus, we're told here, is the leader of a synagogue. And so we know one of his responsibilities as a leader of the local kind of house of worship was to organize what took place for their worship gathering. Jairus would have been a person of influence and affluence. He would have been sort of the guy who would have been responsible for hiring the cantors and the musicians and the people who would read scripture. He was the one who would organize who would come in and speak, such as myself. He was the kind of the COO, the chief operating officer of that local synagogue. Now, here's a question for us to consider. Why is Jesus not in the synagogue teaching? Why is he out here along the seashore? It's because the synagogue leaders didn't like Jesus, right? By this time in Jesus' ministry, he's not even welcome in the synagogue. They think he's blasphemous by what he teaches. We know that later, as we read in Scripture, they're jealous of his popularity. And so it's really interesting, and don't miss this, that here we have a leader of a synagogue, a guy who he himself probably is not a Jesus fan, is now laying at Jesus' feet, asking for him to touch his daughter's life. And what we see here is the first kind of faith. It's a faith that I'm calling desperate faith. Point number 1 in your app notes, this is what we see is desperate faith. Have you ever felt desperation? Have you ever been in a situation where you needed a change really quick? Maybe a miracle you were hoping for. Maybe you were in a situation where you just thought, I am in serious trouble right now. I need some help. Oh God, oh God, oh God, can you help me? What do they say? There's no atheists in a foxhole, right? When the bombs are blowing up around you and things are going hanky, people typically will throw up a desperation prayer. And that's what we see here, right? We're told that Jairus' daughter, his 12-year-old daughter, his only daughter, is dying. Now, the fact that this is his only daughter, and she's 12 years old, for me, leads me to believe that this is probably the only child Jairus and his wife are going to have. I mean, you would think if they had more daughters, it would be a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old, or sometimes there are some surprises, right? We know that. But I'm making the assumption that the fact that Jairus has got a 12-year-old daughter and she is dying, this is it, which sort of explains why he is desperate. Love, I don't know, would you agree with me that love is a powerful motivator for change? Agree or disagree? Desperation has a way of influencing our convictions, which explains why Jairus, a guy who may have been a critic of Jesus, now finds himself laying prostrate on the ground, desperate, humbly asking God for help. And Jesus decides to go with him. By the way, desperation faith is a real kind of faith. And don't let the devil tell you or whisper in your ear that it's not a good kind of faith, because even desperation faith is something that Jesus receives. How do we know that? Because Jesus goes with him, right? Look again at verse 42. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Also, drop me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you.